Welcome to Snack Time Chats, a collection of short, podcast-style recordings designed to promote best practice and encourage knowledge exchange throughout the ELC sector. Each session will be led by the Improvement Service, who will be joined by a different guest speaker for each recording. To ensure quality was at the heart of early years provision within East Bartonshire Council during the expansion towards 1140 hours, the need to provide a coherent and concise training calendar for all settings, local authority, PVI and funded childminders was identified. Despite the pandemic, there was a drive to ensure that secure inductions were provided for the expanding early years workforce and also in supporting development and progression for all. Professional learning sessions were delivered by the early years team throughout the academic year to deliver priorities from centres, self-evaluation and improvement planning. I am delighted to be joined by Leona Stewart, who is a Quality Improvement Officer in the early years team with East Bartonshire Council, who is going to talk more about the professional learning calendar and highlight some of the benefits that it has already delivered.
Leona, would you like to say hello and tell us a little bit about your background and your involvement with the professional learning calendar, its development and its implementation?
Yes, Emma, thank you. My name's Leona Stewart and I work for East Bartonshire Council. I'm a Quality Improvement Officer for early years within the authority. Previously, I was on secondment from my head of centre post and I was working to implement 1140 across East Bartonshire Council. So as part of that 1140 drive and also as part of that quality improvement aspect in early years, we found that it was necessary during COVID to think about our early years practitioners maybe working remotely, not having the same access to people on a face-to-face basis. We felt it was necessary to introduce a professional learning calendar that allowed them to have contact with each other and allowed for us to highlight important factors within early years at that time. And obviously with the 1140 hours of funding being the driving force, and as Emma stated, thinking about that coherence across quality for all our centres. So the offer of this early years professional learning calendar went out to all local authority practitioners in early years, all funded providers and all funded childminders. And it was a free provision at the point of them attending. All of the professional learning was available on Teams and it was also uploaded onto a glow tile which our practitioners and centres had access to. So the focus for all our training was realising the ambition, having that at its core, but also taking into account the COVID-19 and the support to return for recovery for early year centres in August 2020. As I said, the sessions were delivered by all the early years central team and throughout the academic year, and they were designed to develop the priorities really that we had assessed from centres through their self-evaluation and through improvement planning, and also in that time of recovery to support with COVID. The training was divided in to provide themes across that were appropriate to managers and also themes that were available that we felt were suitable for practitioners. So the key themes were supporting young children at points of transition, information for parents on transitions, being me through play and being me through adversity and trauma. And they also took account of HIGEL 2.3 learning, teaching and assessment and HIGEL 3.2 securing children's progress.
So Leona, you mentioned that you delivered these through Teams. Do you find that they allowed a wider audience to attend if you were to do a comparison to an in-person learning event in comparison to an online learning event? Did you find you had a more diverse mix of skills? You had a more a better reach of who was actually attending these, with it being able to fit into their day slightly better? Or was it just that was pure, obviously at the time, purely due to the pandemic where we weren't able to do face-to-face learning events? But how were they received by the sector?
Yeah, I think that we obviously had initially thought that this was the only way that we could deliver because we couldn't do face-to-face. But as the calendar grew throughout 2020, we realised that people were really showing a need for this and a want for it to be provided in this way. You know, there was points in 2020, obviously, where not all our centres were open, and we were working through hub provision for part of it. So it meant that centres could access it even if they weren't in their working day. So they could access it from home. They could, if they were sent an email link to it, they could access it from wherever they were. There was also the opportunity for people to do it for a couple of hours while they were on work, and we made the sessions quite short. So we always had them at a consistent time, for an hour and a half, and it was that kind of short term, if you like, so that people could really do it throughout their day. So they were perhaps doing it in work, but remained in ratio. So it was easier for people to access. It was really what we felt.
That's great, thank you. And I suppose it's a good way to maintain that engagement with practitioners during a challenging time. I suppose, did you find that practitioners were appreciative of actually still being able to have that interaction with their colleagues, either at their local setting level or wider, coming together? So how did the wellbeing element of it fit into what the professional learning calendar was trying to deliver as well? Was that ever part of your planning, or was that just a kind of a little bit of a bonus to be able to see that people were coming together and really getting some good learning from these sessions?
Yeah, I think we didn't really set out for it to be a wellbeing opportunity. Initially, it was really more about ensuring that there was still quality throughout the time of the pandemic, to make sure that we were still keeping in touch with people. And I think it was a bit of a happy accident almost, that people did then feel a bit of affiliation towards each other. It gave them an opportunity to come on and speak to other practitioners. But also, we had never really had anything that was so coherent across all our settings. So we didn't really have anything that included all our early years practitioners from local authority, funded providers and funded childminders. So I think from that point of view, everybody felt as though they were kind of in it together, and it was quite supportive of that we were all getting the same messages, the same level of training, and the consistency was there. And obviously for the childminders, we delivered all our sessions for them in the evening because they couldn't attend during the day. So we tried to be as flexible to our practitioners as we possibly could. And we also made sure that we uploaded all our presentations and all the resources that were associated to that onto our Glow Team tile, which then has really become a learning hub for people. So people can go back in, they can see the materials that they maybe had already during their attendance, or if they weren't able to attend on that day, they can still access the presentation and all the resource materials that are available with it. So the training was provided and organised by the Central Early Years team, and it involved aspects from peer learning, colleagues from Additional Support Team, Education Scotland, and our own people development and educational psychologists. And what people really liked about some of the aspects of training was that we invited in practitioners from across the authority to share what they had done. And people have really reflected back on that and said what they really liked the most was that they could see examples from practice that had been tested and tried and had proved to be successful, or things that people had implemented and then they had learned from that and said that they would do things differently. So I think people have really enjoyed that aspect of it. And we've decided this year, so from August 2021, we continued with the online training offer because it really seemed to work very well for people and it was very well attended. But we have adapted it slightly. But we've still developed the calendar with the same design for the progression on quality and ensuring there are opportunities for practitioners at every level. And there's been a stronger focus on the skills of the individual practitioners this year, as opposed to that kind of hierarchical approach where it was managers and practitioners.
Was that identified through evaluation of your calendar last year, that actually being able to do it, target it at skill level rather than hierarchy level? Did that make a difference? Do you feel that there's actually maybe more that could be offered by approaching it in that manner?
Yeah, I think what we saw was that we might ask a manager and a practitioner who's maybe quite new into a setting to attend, and we were maybe doing some training on nurture. And actually, the practitioner had better knowledge than the manager in some cases. So, actually, looking at it across their skills as opposed to what job role profile they had, I think gave a better mix of people. and it certainly gave better opportunities for discussion and learning, that sort of peer learning opportunity that we were really looking for, as opposed to expecting everyone to be at the same level just because of their experience and qualification. Because you may have a family champion within your setting who's very experienced at nurture, and a new manager who hasn't had that opportunity before. So we really felt that to have it better set at a skills level gave more opportunities for people to discuss. And the offer was based really on where practitioners are in their own CPD journey. And and that's how we've offered it. So we've kind of split it into three. There's an informed section, which is really for new practitioners, or that the subject matter is new to them regardless of their role. And then we have at a skilled level, so that's those that are more confident in their practice and can take forward initiatives in their centre. And the enhanced is for those who could maybe take the learning forward in their own setting through implementation and delivery, because they've already feel quite confident in that subject matter, but they just need a wee bit of support in maybe how to take forward the delivery. And what we felt actually, Emma, is that that has really then supported leadership at all levels throughout our centres, and not just focus on the managers as the leaders.
Great.
And
So
it's definitely given us a bit of a wider mix of practitioners at the sessions, and we found that to be beneficial in terms of that, like I said, peer and the collaborative learning across the authority.
Yeah, and it's so refreshing to hear how the initial idea it worked for the purpose at the time, and there was COVID and lockdowns and restrictions, but actually now how that's grown and blossomed into something that's far bigger than just that initial reactive response to a situation that nobody was really equipped to deal with. It's so refreshing to hear how it now is a key part in that learning for staff within the sector, within your local authority, and that regardless of somebody's experience or skill set when they move into that sector, if they're new or if they've been there for a number of years, having that opportunity to come together and learn as equals in an environment that is really focused on areas that are of relevance to what they're working on, or in terms of supporting realising the ambition. It's a really, really great example of how learning can continue to evolve despite challenging circumstances, and despite the skills gap that often occurs when you are dealing with mixed age ranges and mixed experience levels. And also you touched on the delivery being at kind of certain times for childminders and for practitioners during the day. Who within the authority was identified to deliver particular courses? As you mentioned that they were delivered by your early years team, but do you have support from individuals within settings? So as you mentioned, you've got family champions who have a lot of experience around nurture. So were they asked to contribute to the sessions on that particular topic, or is it a core team within your early years team that sort of deliver the training to the practitioners?
We have a small core team within our early years who work centrally, and really it's been our remit, if you like, to decide who would be best to deliver. So we've kind of handed out the responsibility of certain subject matters to people who we think are the experts or have a good knowledge in that area. However, it may not necessarily be them who deliver, because they then will go out and seek who they've maybe seen or heard within the authority, alongside our other practitioners. Like I said, we've had Education Scotland come in and deliver sessions as well. So really it's about going out and seeking who is best placed to deliver. And sometimes the sessions have a little bit of a balance between some formal learning. So it's maybe something directly from Education Scotland website, from realising ambition itself, and taking that apart, picking that apart a little bit. And then practitioners as well sharing how they've implemented certain aspects of it. We also have in our central team, we've got early level support teachers and equity and excellence leads, and they've also supported in delivery and organisation of the sessions. So really we come together as a team to think who is best placed to deliver that training, and we do go out to our centres as well and ask them to contribute where we've seen really good practice in place. Also part of it is that we've really reflected on each session. So following each session, we immediately put out a questionnaire and ask people to be as reflective as they possibly can to us, so that we can learn from each session and take that forward in our next. So we're responding and reacting every time we do the training. So we're not saying at the start of the year, this is what our training is going to look like, and follow it to the letter. We do respond to people's needs as that comes along. And we ask them to do that following each module, and we check out their satisfaction with the course and if it meets the aims that we expected it to meet. But we also ask them how they're then going to take that learning forward and how they'll measure this. So really when we're asking centres to come in and present what they've done, it's about people who have already implemented in their own centre and they've measured the success. But also we're asking them how they're going to gather that data over time and then measure the impact, so that we can all learn from our next steps. And that's probably going to be what we'll take forward for next year as well, for next year's professional learning calendar. So there's a really strong emphasis on that reflective practice and self-evaluation.
That's again, it's just so refreshing to hear that the constant evaluation of it and the constant engagement with the participants is what really is at the heart of this, as well as the content of delivering meaningful learning opportunities to the practitioners and managers, but actually that it's adding value to their day and to their practice, and essentially to the families who interact with the practitioners. You've mentioned that you're planning to have a learning calendar for the next academic year.
Yep.
How far in advance are practitioners able to sign up to an event? Is a calendar planned out for the full academic year, or is it released in stages where there's obviously a core modules that kind of the expectation is that everybody would attend or everybody would participate in? Are they laid out well in advance, or are there ad hoc courses that are added in depending on the evaluation and feedback from individual centres?
Yeah, so a bit of both, Emma. We set out the calendar last year and the year before. We set the calendar out as a core calendar of training based on that realising ambition and the two QIs from Higgy Ilk to show that there was that consistency and coherence across the learning, just to make sure that we had in the core examples of what we thought was relevant for that year moving forward. And that's what we'll do again this year. So that's released for sign up from August at each year, and people can sign up straight away in August. And you quite often get a flurry of activity around about August when PDRs are taking place. People are thinking about how they're going to implement their improvement plans for the year and things like that. So you get a flurry of activity. But then as the year progresses, we start being responsive to the practitioners as we're going out to visit them in centres, as we're listening to what their needs are and what their requests are. And where possible, we look to access further training to enhance that core calendar, if you like. So this year we have included some aspects of evaluative writing from Education Scotland, and we're looking to them to implement something on curriculum in January and observation styles and for planning and things like that. But we also have, running alongside these this core content, we offer out Aspire leadership modules to people, and that's offered through our people development calendar. And obviously we look at the maintenance agenda, things like REHIS for new members of staff, first aid training, and all the kind of the core aspects that we need to think about too.
And since the launch of the calendar back in 2020, how has engagement with training or learning events, has it increased any? Are you finding practitioners and staff are more engaged with this way of learning and this way of delivery? And have you found that the feedback you're getting from these events is actually more detailed and more descriptive, that allows you then, obviously you spoke a lot about taking that feedback, it's really, really important, but do you find the feedback from delivering in this manner different to what you would get through a face-to-face learning event?
Yeah, I do think it's different, Emma, because I think quite often there's quite a lot of organisation, as you will know yourself, going into planning an event for people to attend. You know, there's other aspects that come into play. So it's about, you know, hiring a hall, making sure that there is enough space for everybody, there are enough chairs, ensuring that there's catering if you're going to provide catering if it's a long day. So there's a lot of other aspects for either a central team or a trainer to think about when they're organising a training event, where this takes it down to the core. I'm going to present training today, so it allows a lot more time for that to be the focus rather than all the other things. And I think as we've all got used to maybe having that bit of online interaction mostly through Microsoft Teams in our local authority, I think people's confidence has grown, and the people who are delivering the training, their confidence has grown, and they've worked out clever ways to get people to engage on the day. Not everyone is very keen to have their camera on or speak in a large forum. So having little breakout rooms and things like that, opportunities for practitioners just to be on their own and discuss matters, I think have also supported that, or doing Slidos where you can get interaction from people without them having to speak. So I think it's that learning process has really added value to the online training events as they've gathered apace. So it's difficult, I think, at this stage still to say whether this has been really successful, but the feeling about it is that it's much better, and there's a lot more involvement from people. But that will be data that we'll gather over this year's calendar to reflect at the end of the year to make sure that we have delivered something that people want and something that is still suitable for their needs and still adds quality to their provision.
Perfect. That's really great, Leona, and I really appreciate you coming along to chat to me this morning, and you've given such an in-depth overview of what your project looks like, and essentially it's been a project that's added so much value, and it's delivering really meaningful outputs to practitioners in your area. I suppose what we want to do is encourage sharing of best practice like this with other local authorities. And I suppose I'm sure you would agree with me that if anybody listening to this is thinking about implementing something similar, that you or your team would be happy to chat to them about that and give them some one-to-one direction and support if it's something that they think would work within their own authority.
Yes, absolutely. And we've not done anything, we've not rewritten early years professional learning. You know, we've taken good quality experiences, we've taken good quality writing that's already out there, and we're just sharing it with our own practitioners really and putting it into some kind of format. So you know, so we're more than happy. It's not anything that we've copyrighted as being our own. We've just taken really good strong ideas and strong messages and put them out there. So yes, be more than happy to share with others.
That's great. Well, thank you so much again for joining me today. I'll make sure that your contact details are noted alongside this recording for individuals to get in touch with you directly if they have any questions at all. But thank you so much again.
Okay, thank you, Emma.
Thank you for listening. If you have any questions about the topics discussed in this recording, or if you're interested in taking part in the series, please do not hesitate to get in touch. More details and contact information can be found on the Improvement Service website.